When you hear the word economics, what comes to mind? Probably stock markets, right? Maybe some complex charts. But what if I told you it's not really about money at all? At its heart, economics is about a single, fundamental problem that every single one of us, every family, every country has to solve. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what that problem is and the three huge questions that come from it.
To really get what economics is about, we gotta go way back to the word itself. It comes from the ancient Greek oikonomia, which literally means household management. Kind of weird, right? That a field that deals with global trade and finance would start with something as simple as running a house. But as you'll see, it's the perfect place to begin.
So why? Why would this huge global concept start with something so small? Well, it's because a single household is actually a tiny, perfect model of an entire economy. It faces the exact same core challenge.
And here is that challenge in a nutshell. On one hand, you have us, humans. Our wants are basically unlimited. We always want more. It's just how we're wired. But on the other hand, the resources we have to get those things, the land, the water, the time in a day, are limited. They're finite. This fundamental clash, this conflict between our infinite desires and the world's finite stuff has a name: scarcity. And scarcity is the engine that makes the entire world of economics go round. This core problem of scarcity forces every single society to answer three basic, inevitable questions. It doesn't matter if you're a tiny remote tribe or a global superpower, you just can't escape them. And here they are. It's pretty simple, really. First, what should we make with our limited stuff? Second, how are we going to make it? And third, once it's all made, who gets it? What, how, and for whom? That's it. These are the three pillars of any economy on the planet. And you know what? It doesn't matter where you look, whether it's in a super polished textbook or some students' messy lecture notes. These three questions are always there. They are the universal, unavoidable foundation of how we organize ourselves as a species. So the first question, what to produce, is all about making choices. Since our resources are scarce, we can't have everything. If you use a plot of land to grow food, you can't use that same land for a factory. If you use steel to build cars, you can't use it for bridges. Every single yes to one thing is an automatic no to something else. The second question, how to produce, is really a question of technology and method. Are we going to use a labor-intensive approach with lots of people doing the work? Or are we going to go capital-intensive, bringing in the big machines to do the heavy lifting? A society has to figure out the most efficient way to create what it needs. And finally, for whom to produce. This is the big one, right? The distribution question. Once we've produced all this stuff, how do we divide it up? Who gets what share of the economic pie? This really boils down to how a country's income, all the rent, wages, interest, and profit, gets distributed among its population. All right, so if every society faces these same three questions, how do they actually go about answering them? Well, over time, three main blueprints or economic systems have emerged to tackle the problem. And the answers that societies have come up with generally fall into three big buckets: the market economy, which you probably know as capitalism, the centrally planned economy, or socialism, and finally, the mixed economy, which, as the name suggests, is a blend of the two. Let's break each one down. First up, the market economy. This is the system you're likely the most familiar with, since it's the model for countries like the United States and the UK. So, in a pure market economy, the name of the game is private ownership. Individuals and companies own everything. The driving force is the profit motive. If you could make money selling something, you do it. This system is incredible at sparking innovation and efficiency. But there's a flip side. Because the goal is individual profit and not necessarily collective well-being, a very common outcome is significant economic inequality. So who's in charge here? The fascinating answer is nobody and everybody all at once. The system answers the three big questions all by itself. There's something called the price mechanism. This is basically the invisible force of supply and demand. What gets produced? Whatever people are willing to buy. How is it made? In the cheapest way possible to maximize profit. And who gets it? Simple. Whoever can afford to pay. Okay, now let's flip the script completely and look at the polar opposite approach: the centrally planned economy, or socialism. Here, the philosophy is totally different. The government, representing the public, owns the major resources and industries. The goal isn't individual profit, it's social welfare. The idea is to produce what society needs, not just what it will buy. The ultimate aim is equality, making sure everyone gets a share.
Historically, countries like Cuba and China have used this model, though it's important to know their economies have changed a lot over time.
So how are the three questions answered in this system? Not by the invisible hand of the market, but by the very visible hand of the state. It's all based on central planning. A government authority decides what the country should produce, how it should be made, and who gets the final goods, all based on its own long-term goals for society. When you put them side by side, the contrast is just crystal clear. Ownership, private versus public. The mean motive, profit versus welfare. The problem solver that answers the three big questions, the invisible price mechanism versus deliberate government planning. This leads to very different intended outcomes. One prioritizing individual success, which can lead to inequality, the other aiming for collective equality. These are two fundamentally different blueprints for a society. But here's the reality. Almost no country is 100% one or the other. The vast majority of nations today, from India all the way to the United States itself, operate on a third blueprint, the mixed economy. A mixed economy tries to get the best of both worlds. It harnesses the innovation and efficiency of the market, allowing a private sector to be driven by profit. But it also acknowledges that the market can fail to provide crucial services. So, a public sector exists right alongside it, where the government steps in to plan and provide things like national defense, public roads, and often healthcare and education, with the goal of social welfare. It's a constant balancing act between the power of the market and the needs of society.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that there's no perfect answer. There's no single economic system that solves every problem. Each blueprint we've just looked at is simply a different set of answers to those three core questions. And every set of answers comes with its own powerful benefits and its own unavoidable trade-offs.
Ultimately, the entire debate between these systems boils down to one timeless question that every society has to answer for itself. What is the right balance between individual freedom and collective fairness? There's no easy answer, and the struggle to find that balance is the ongoing story of our world. So I'll leave you with that to think about. What do you think the right balance is?